remain standing for the alma mater hymn. Patricia Graves up for a greeting.
Well, good evening and welcome. We are so glad that you're here. You might be a little soggy, but we are glad that you are here to celebrate or begin the celebration of an exciting weekend. So to all of you, the extended members of the Graceland community, we're here for one reason, to celebrate this class of 2024. It is with great pride and joy that I stand before you to help celebrate this remarkable accomplishment in each and one of your academic journey here at Graceland. Today we mark not only the culmination of your years of hard work and dedication, but also to a new beginning and a new chapter of your lives with endless possibilities and new opportunities for each and every one of you. Baccalaureate is a time for us to just inhale, take a breath, reflect for a minute before our formal ceremony of commencement tomorrow. It's a special service at Graceland, steeped in the faith and the traditions of our sponsoring church, the Community of Christ. It's to provide a charge to you, the graduates, and a blessing to all your family and friends who arrived here and have supported you in your journey. I'm grateful to have a special Graceland graduate with us tonight. Michael Lewis was a recipient of the Student Life Award here at Graceland, and the award that will be given to a student or two this evening. And you can see from the program, he has had many amazing achievements since leaving this campus as a graduate, including serving on the Graceland Board of Trustees and as the president of the Alumni Board. And I am fortunate that he is friends to so many in the Graceland community, and I'm proud to call myself one of them. This weekend, we are not only celebrating the completion of your undergraduate studies, we are also celebrating the theme of tonight, revolution. A revolution of the mind, a revolution of the spirit, and a revolution of the heart. Throughout your time here at Graceland, you have been part of a transformative experience, one that's challenged you to think critically, to question the status quo, and to imagine the world where anything is possible. I've had several students come up to me in the last week and say, remember when I got to campus, what a baby I was? Look at me now, how much I've grown up. And it's just funny that they came, remember the first time you saw me and how scared I was? And I was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do remember that. And look, now you're going out and as a confident, well-skilled young person moving out into the world. The word revolution often conjures up images of dramatic change, of upheaval and rebellion. But true revolution is not just about tearing things down. It's also about building something new, something better. It's about challenging the norms, pushing boundaries, and to dare to dream about a brighter future for our world. Each of you have had your own personal revolution, a journey of self-discovery, of growth. You have grappled with complex ideas, engaged in deep conversations, forged lifelong friendships, and at Graceland, whether it's on your houses, your athletic teams, with your faculty, and in your clubs. Those experiences have enriched your academic experience, and it shaped the remarkable people that you are here today. Your personal revolution, though, does not end here. It just begins. As you step out into the world armed with knowledge and skills and values you've acquired here at Graceland, you now have the power to be agents of change, to make a difference, and to leave your mark on the world. So as you embark on this new chapter in your life, I urge you to embrace that spirit of revolution that has brought you to this moment. Dare to think differently, dare to act boldly, dare to dream, dare to move our world to one that's of justice and equality and compassion and empathy. The world needs more Graceland graduates like each one of you. You have limitless potential, and you will lead the future with hope, purpose, and fulfillment. Welcome to our service, welcome to reflection, and a celebration, and an awesome weekend.
Welcome, and thank you for those who are participating in our service tonight, including those who are behind the scenes. You will find their names in the acknowledgments in your program. As you leave the service this evening, you will have an opportunity to contribute to a special fund with Campus Ministries, a partnership between Graceland University and the Community of Christ. This fund is used only to help individual students on campus with a range of basic living needs. This does not go to our budget, it does not go to the Graceland budget, nor Campus Ministries budget. It's simply there to help students. There are many students who come to Graceland who end up in a food situation or a housing situation or some other that need our attention and our support. So you can either give by cash or check, or if you'd like to give by credit card, on the offering basket is a QR code that you can scan and then fill out the form, and it'll take you to a credit card place out in the ether somewhere. Anyway, so you can do that. And if you want to give in some other ways, just ask me, and I would be glad to help you with that. We will not have an offering as such in the service tonight. Following Baccalaureate, the President's reception for graduates and their families will be in the Newcomb Student Union Great Room. I think there are coat racks there. Is that correct, or do we know? Yes, coat racks. If you want to just go straight from here, graduates, you can place, and faculty for that matter, you can take your cap and gown and hang it up there temporarily and enjoy that reception. To the 2024 graduates and their families and friends, thank you for joining us tonight. We hope that all that is said and done tonight will be encouragement and a blessing to you for the next part of your journey to bring innovation and change to the world. I'd like to introduce a little bit more formally, and you can see it in your bulletin, but I realize because of the house lights being down a bit, you may not be able to read it, so I'd like to share some information about Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis, JD, is a 1990 Kuma Cum Laude. Is that right, Michael? Magna Cum Laude. I knew I'd get it wrong. Magna Cum Laude. Even though in your brochure it says something else. Magna Cum Laude graduate of Graceland University, where he majored in speech communication and theater and minored in political science and economics. Michael was a proud member of Clausen House. I was expecting somebody to do something there, but okay. And during his senior year at Graceland, Michael served as president of the senior class and a recipient of the Student Life Award, which will be awarded a little bit later this evening here at Baccalaureate. Following Graceland, Michael attended the law schools at University of California, Berkeley, and was a member of the California Law Review and Harvard University, where he studied at the Harvard Project on Negotiation and wrote his third-year writing requirement under the supervision of United States Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. Michael has had an amazing legal career, including time at Warner Brothers. Michael received Time Warner's Andrew High School Award, the highest honor for a Time Warner employee, recognizing contributions to equal opportunity and human rights, largely for his collaboration with Graceland in extending equal rights to the LGBTQIA+ members of the Graceland community. After leaving Warner Brothers, Michael served in legal and leadership roles, most recently serving as the Senior Vice President of Business Affairs, General Counsel, and Chief Corporate Development Officer at American Public Media Group, the largest station-based public radio organization in the United States. Michael oversaw business affairs, legal governance, public affairs, and government relations, and ethics compliance for all of the APMG companies, including Minnesota Public Radio and Southern California Public Radio. In 2022, Michael was a finalist for both the Los Angeles Times In-House Counsel Leadership Awards and the Los Angeles Business Journal Corporate Counsel Awards. And earlier this year, Michael appeared as a case study on the creative leadership in the newly published book, Born to Create, by Anne Jacoby. And I have that book on order, so if you want to talk to me about that, I've got that book, or we'll have it soon. During much of his professional career, Michael also served as the first openly gay president of the Graceland University Alumni Board of Directors and member of the Graceland Board of Trustees, where at some point he served on most of the board committees and chaired the development, student life, and enrollment committees. Michael also served on the board of directors of the international nonprofit Health Ed Connect for 14 years, including its executive committee for the past 2, and was instrumental in founding and funding the organization's Girls Achievement Program, which supports girls in Zambia in completing their high school education. Michael is committed to equity, inclusion, and diversity as fundamental to good business and strong communities of belonging. He's very excited to be back in Lamoni and the hallowed Graceland campus, where many of his dreams are planted and continue to thrive. Can we recognize Michael Lewis? So I'd like to share with you a little bit about the theme. So I was given 2 challenges. Whenever I'm responsible for coordinating Baccalaureate, but I was given a couple of challenges this year. Could we use the theme based on Michael's experience and some other things going on at the university to somehow use technology as the metaphor? Not necessarily the theme for the night, but the metaphor. And so in our challenge, we took the key words that might have arisen as some of our themes tonight, including changing the world and innovation and connections, and we put it into an AI generator, and the word that came out was revolution. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about that whole concept, because while love has not been at the heart of every revolution, Martin Luther King Jr. elevated the call to love from the hidden longing of the solitary heart to a public cry. He proclaimed love to be the only effective way to end injustice and bring peace, declaring that sooner or later, all the people of the world will have to discover a way to live together in peace. Revolution can also be understood as something revolving, as how our earth spins from darkness to light, and a pattern that humankind can follow. Our invitation to worship tonight is taken from 1 Chronicles chapter 12, David has been crowned king of all Israel, and the chronicler, or the writer or historian, is listing all those who have joined his cause after his coronation. It includes peoples and leaders from various tribes of Israel. While some tribes are noted for their physical strengths, the tribe of Issachar expressed different strengths. It is these strengths which invite us to worship this evening, that call us to move from darkness to light to change the world. From Issachar, people who understood the times and knew what should be done, 200 leaders and their families. I can't help think about how many graduates there are this year and the fact that they are with their families this evening. As we enter this time of worship and blessing, may you realize your potential for understanding the times and knowing what needs to be done to change the world.
I have no idea how I'm going to top that, but I sure will try. If you will pray with me in the best way and most comfortable way to you. Dearest Heavenly Parent, breather of peace, you promised us the Holy Spirit, and today we celebrate its presence among us in this very place. Thank you for this. Thank you for the Spirit whose closeness we sometimes see, sometimes feel, and always know. As winds signal the change of seasons, and as fire warms the cold, as breezes carry butterflies on their migration, as embers hold the hope of renewal, as we go out and embark the world waiting us, inspire us to bring peace wherever it is needed. As peace flows in every language, open our eyes to the small corners in need of peace. Open our arms to hold one another, quiet our voices and listen to the commotion, and strengthen our shoulders for the hard work ahead. In the gentle and just name of Jesus, amen.
long ago, when judges governed Israel, a famine swept over the land. A family from the town of Bethlehem immigrated to the region of Moab. The man was named Eli, there we go. I knew I practiced this, but anyway. The man was named Eli. The woman's name was Naomi, more importantly. And their 2 sons were named Mahlon and Chilion. They arrived in the land of Moab and settled there. Soon afterward, Eli died, leaving Naomi and the 2 sons to fend for themselves. The 2 sons eventually married 2 women from Moab, whose names were Orpah and Ruth. And yes, I got Orpah right. So. They had lived in the land of Moab for about 10 years when both the sons died. Naomi prepared to take her daughters-in-law and leave the land of Moab and return to her homeland, for she had heard that Yahweh, the Hebrew name of God, had visited the people there by providing an abundance of food. As Naomi was about to leave for Judah, she told each of her daughter-in-laws, "Return to your mother's house. May God care for you the same kindness that you have cared for your husbands and for me." Then she kissed them both. They wept loudly and said to her, "No, we want to go back with you to the land of your people." But Naomi said to them, "Go back home, my daughters. Why do you want to come with me? I have no more sons that you can take as spouses. You must go back, my daughters." Once again, they wept together. Then Orpah kissed Naomi, and she returned to her people. But Ruth stayed by Naomi's side. Naomi said to Ruth, "Look, your sister-in-law has returned to her people and to the God of her ancestors. You too must go. Follow your sister-in-law." But Ruth said to Naomi,
"Please don't make me ask you to leave and turn away from your company. I swear to you, where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I'll die there too, and I will be buried there beside you. I swear, may Yahweh be my witness and judge, that not even in death will keep us apart."
Seeing that Ruth was determined to accompany her, Naomi said no more.
Good evening. I'd like to begin by saying that if you are a person of faith, Christian, Jew, Muslim, or any other tradition of respect, if you are a person of questions or a non-believer, you are welcome in this space. The God that I know is a God of wild, radical, queer love, and welcomes each person as they are and where they are. I'm so grateful for your presence tonight. I'd like to start with 2 quick thank yous and an I'm sorry. I'll start with the I'm sorry. The program says summa cum laude, not magna cum laude, because of my fault. Maybe if I'd paid more attention to details as a student, it would have appropriately said summa cum laude. Alas, it doesn't. Here we are, magna. I'm sorry. 2 thank yous. It is a privilege to wear the academic robe of President Emerita Dr. Barbara Higdon tonight. She was a lifelong mentor of mine, and I feel especially held by her as I stand with you now. And secondly, thank you, President Draves, thank you, the Graceland community. I love Graceland dearly. I do not take lightly the privilege of standing in front of the Graceland community, and I'm so grateful for your invitation tonight. I'm going to be talking all about women. The world really doesn't need another man talking about women, but it's a privilege to do so tonight. As you heard in the scripture tonight, we're thinking about Ruth and Naomi from the Hebrew scriptures in the book of Ruth. And we're also going to be talking, if you will indulge me, about a woman who was so important to me in the last 10 or 15 years. My beloved friend Eva Balo escaped from Nazi concentration camps not once but twice. She was a force. Eva and I first met in 2012 in our Los Angeles neighborhood of Los Feliz at a mutual friend's party. I was 43 and Eva was 90, and I adored her from the moment we met. Eva was 5'1", 5'2", and probably weighed not more than about 110 pounds, especially with her briery, delicious Hungarian accent and her piercing, mischievous blue eyes with crackling wit to match. Eva could easily remind one of the ribald TV sex advisor, Dr. Ruth. I have always treasured relationships with older folks, people older than me, because of their rich experiences and insights into life lived fully. Having been born in Budapest, Hungary, and survived the Holocaust, Eva had more than enough stories to keep me enraptured for hours. At the party where we met, Eva explained that she was seeking reparations from the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany for persecution she had suffered as a Hungarian Jew, but she was stuck in the process, mired in red tape, and she thought she would never see a Pfennig, a German coin. Eva, I said, having just met her, if I have one superhero power as a transactional attorney, it is cutting through red tape. I said, let's work together, and so we did, and in so doing, we became the closest of friends. Over the decade-long expanse of our relationship that followed, Eva would refer to me vacillatingly as her best friend, her nephew, her lover, although I was too old for her, and my favorite, her grandson. In Hungarian, I was always so proud to call Eva my adopted Naji Mama. My thoughts today are about human connection and mutual vulnerability, and the sustaining web of interconnection formed by relationships that provide a network of life and love across which God makes the divine self known to all of creation. We know God in and through our relationships. As a matter of fact, it was a Graceland connection, the Mesleys, that led me to theologian and scholar Ellen Davis, whose scholarship on the Hebrew Testament book of Ruth sheds light on today's text. Davis points out that in the book of Judges, which precedes the book of Ruth, the judges were judging before the kings were crowned, and so it was a time largely led by men and not so great for women. But it begins to shift in the book of Ruth. We see narrative characters like Ruth emerge as what Davis calls vulnerable protectors, exhibiting the Hebrew notion of hesed, or mutual loyalty, practiced among people who are somehow vulnerable. Oftentimes, hesed is distilled down to the notion of loving kindness in commitment. This ideal of hesed forms a key part of one of the Bible's most important, sweeping, and radical teachings, namely that true relational peace is only found through justice rather than through violence. Ruth is such a quintessential character exemplifying vulnerability. She's a widow, she's an orphan, and she's a sojourner. As a minister, I often use today's beloved passage from Ruth at weddings, and it's a very apt fit for illuminating the mutuality required in committed relationships. But at its heart, this story is about vulnerable people, and aren't we all vulnerable? Vulnerable people committed to the durable mutual respect of one another and to the promotion of the common good in order to thrive and survive. In today's story, Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, urges Ruth to return to Ruth's own birth family and her own tribe, where Ruth would likely find more security. But Ruth refuses. Instead, she remains loyal to her own vulnerable mother-in-law while experiencing great vulnerability herself. As Ruth ultimately goes on to become the mother of the Davidic and Messianic lineage, we see clearly what kind of creative transformation the Christian scriptures point to as the fruits of loving kindness and vulnerable protection. When I first met Eva, she spoke Hungarian, German, French, English, Latin, and a little bit of flirty Italian. I only spoke English and a little bit of flirty Louisville, y'all. Pero ahora aprendiendo español poquito a poquito y me gusta mucho. But I certainly didn't speak any Hungarian. However, through my rich network of Graceland relationships, I knew folks who did. I was a Graceland student when former Graceland President John Menzies was still a trustee and helping the university establish academic ties in Eastern Europe, including Hungary. I'm pretty sure that my Graceland classmate Victoria Bosniak was one of the very first students that Ambassador Menzies helped attend Graceland, in part utilizing funding from Hungarian-born entrepreneur George Soros. Having been smart enough to stay in close touch with Graceland after graduation, I met Victoria's twin daughters many years after their mother and I had graduated. Her daughters are Dory and Shadi. As Eva's birthday approached each year, I would send, with the new technology of email, I would send text to Dory that she would translate for me into Hungarian and email it back to me, and then I would handwrite it on Eva's birthday card, carefully placing the many difficult accents and other diacritics of Hungarian, and give it to Eva on her birthday. Oh, how Eva loved getting a birthday card in handwritten Hungarian from an American. Those electric blue eyes of her would flash cube with delight as she checked my punctuation and criticized my spelling. I got to experience Eva so much more richly because of the network of Graceland relationships across which Eva and I had our friendship. Without ever taking a class in Hungarian, I learned through Graceland how to say I love you in the native tongue of my cross-cultural Naji Mama, and that went really far. Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi, also learned to say I love you despite being from different cultures and different tribes. As the human family faces such destructive and unjust tribalism today, this is an especially poignant lesson about what matters to the sacred in international relations. The Holocaust is a powerful and horrendous example of what a society can do and become when it is devoid of loving kindness, when it fails in the protection of the vulnerable, or when it loses sight of the enduring principle of the worth of all persons. Racial, ethnic, and religious oppression, homophobia, misogyny, and other forms of discrimination, and climate collapse all demand that in order for us to survive, we must band together in the loving kindness of Hesed, informed by mutual vulnerability. We must admit that we are vulnerable in order to find and create our own protection. Eva was so impressed with my translated birthday notes that she asked for Dory's contact information so that she could send a thank you note to Dory, which Eva did, and then Dory responded. This led to a rich correspondence between the two women and the discovery that Eva's childhood apartment in Budapest was just around the corner from where Victoria, Shadi, and Dory once lived. From across many years and thousands of miles, Eva and the Bosniaks discovered that they were cherished neighbors. In another fantastic coincidence, we also learned that Eva grew up playing cards many nights each month with George Soros and his parents, who all called Eva Botsi, which in Hungarian means the little cow. Eva assured me that there was much more loving kindness in that nickname than the translation might suggest. So many memories of Eva will never leave me. She and I were successful in obtaining reparations from the German government for Eva largely as compensation for the time she was relegated to the Jewish ghetto in Budapest toward the end of the war. I will never forget the look on Eva's face or the tears pooling in her wise eyes when the first check arrived from Bonn. The amount was insignificant. What mattered to this profoundly strong woman was that someone had said, "We see you, we believe you, you were wronged, and you deserve amends." In a story for another time, I also will never forget, after many years of amazing stories, thinking I'd heard them all, when Eva said to me, sipping instant coffee at her dining room table casually, "Did I ever tell you of the time I saw Hitler?" The surprises and insights of sustained intimacy are rich and marvelous. In 1944, when the Nazis took occupation of Hungary, Eva was marched by the German army from the ghetto in Budapest to a small concentration camp called Kistarcha, outside of her hometown, with the soldiers telling the prisoners they were ultimately being taken to a work camp. When Eva realized that she and her fellow prisoners were not being fed, she also realized how unlikely it was that the Nazis were taking them to a place of work. Eva managed to escape from Kistarcha under the cover of night, but unfortunately was turned in by a family in the countryside, recaptured by the Nazis, and returned to Kistarcha. The second time took. Eva snuck out and under the cover of night made her way back to Budapest, and then out of the country by crossing into Austria, carrying little more than the clothes on her back, ultimately making her way to the U.S. via the Eisenhower airlifts from Austria to Camp Kilmer in New Jersey. Although more than 70 of Eva's siblings and cousins and other relatives were put to death in Auschwitz, Eva started a new life for herself in America, founded her own accounting firm, and read the New York Times and listened to Bartok and Dvorak on a daily basis, dying a couple of years ago at the age of 98. A year or two before she died, I invited Eva to my house, and I invited 20 or 30 friends, and I interviewed Eva in front of my friends. We captured it on video. And at the end of this 2 or 3 hour interview, and there's Eva sitting in her St. John knits suit and her Ferragamo shoes, and I said to her, thinking that I was going to sum all of this up in this warm, fuzzy moment, I said, "Eva, you have seen such horrible things in your life. You've lost your family, you've been persecuted for your religion, and yet you experience joy. You go to the Disney concert hall and see Dudamel direct Bartok. You read the New York Times, you love your dog Snooki. How do you do it?" Thinking that she would have this Disney advice for us. Eva thought for a moment and said, "You never let anyone put their foot on your neck." Loving kindness doesn't mean you have to get pushed around. It means you live a life dedicated to respect. A year after Eva's death, I was finally able to visit her beloved city of Budapest. The trip we had always planned to take together was not to be, but because of all of the information Eva had provided to Dori, which Dori passed on to her mother Victoria, who still lives in Budapest, Victoria and I were able to meet and trace Eva's life, first to the balcony of her childhood apartment, where she would stand at night to look across her beloved block, then to her Doheny Street synagogue, and even her favorite pie shop. Eva's people had become my people. Her language, my language, and Eva's home had become my home. On my last day in Hungary, I got up at sunrise and made my way out to the suburban neighborhood on the humble outskirts of Budapest, where, buried unremarkably and unheralded amidst the upgrowth of middle-class life, still stands the horrible, stark buildings of Kistarcha. Eva both sang and wailed in my heart as I surveyed what was once her intended death camp. And I rejoiced in the power and strength, the fortitude and determination of the small, powerful woman who was my Naji Mama. In the face of adversity, may Eva's life urge each of us to endure and thrive. And in the face of violence or conflict, may Eva's memory and Ruth and Naomi's vulnerable examples always be a blessing, persuading us to dedicate all that we have and all that we know to the creation of peace through justice and loving kindness.